Sometimes life feels like it's on pause. You pray, you strive, and yet nothing moves. Doors stay closed. Time stands still. And in that silence, you start to wonder, has Allah forgotten me? But what if this pause isn't punishment? What if it's protection? What if the delay is not denial, but divine design? When life slows down and everything around you feels still, it's easy to feel forgotten. You look around and see others moving forward while you're standing in the same place. But that pause isn't lifeless. It's sacred. Beneath the silence, Allah is building something within you that cannot be rushed. He halts your plans not to punish you, but to prepare you. The unseen work He's doing in your heart during this stillness is often greater than anything you could achieve through action. Sometimes Allah pauses your movement so your roots of faith can grow deep enough to hold the weight of what's coming next. There are moments when every effort feels fruitless, when every dua seems to hang unanswered in the air. In those moments, remember that Allah's delay is never a denial. Every second of waiting has meaning woven into it by the one who knows the unseen. What looks like a closed door might be the very thing protecting you from harm or guiding you toward something far better. If you could see the full picture, you would realize that every not yet was mercy. Every silence was a form of care. And every waiting season was divine preparation for a blessing that required time to mature. Faith is not tested in clarity. It's tested in confusion. When you cannot trace the hand of Allah, you are invited to trust His heart. That's where real faith is born, not when life feels easy, but when it feels uncertain. It's in those moments you whisper, "Yea, Allah, I don't see the way, but I know you are guiding me." Trusting without proof transforms the heart. It humbles you, softens your ego, and teaches you to find peace not in control, but in surrender. That surrender becomes your strength, the kind that cannot be shaken by what comes or what goes. Patience in these unseen pauses is not passive, it's powerful. It means holding your heart steady while your world feels uncertain. It's the act of choosing calm over complaint, faith over fear. Every moment of patience polishes your soul, teaching you to love Allah more deeply than what you desire from Him. When you choose to wait beautifully, you are reshaping yourself into someone who values the giver more than the gift. And in that transformation, you find a peace that no outcome can provide. One day, you will look back and understand. You will see how every delay was a step towards something greater. You'll realize that the pause wasn't punishment. It was purpose. The time you spent waiting was the time Allah spent building you. So, when life feels like it's standing still, remind your heart, the delay is not the end of your story. It's just a chapter of preparation, written with divine wisdom. What feels paused to you is still in motion with Allah. Trust that when it's time, everything meant for you will arrive beautifully, completely, and right on time. There are moments in life when you wait for something with all your heart, for healing, for clarity, for change, and it doesn't come when you expect it to. Those moments test the very core of your faith. You begin to wonder if Allah has forgotten you, if your prayers have gone unheard. But every delay carries a wisdom you cannot yet grasp. The waiting is not empty time, it's sacred space where Allah is arranging things in ways your heart cannot see. He delays not to deprive, but to deliver something far better than what you imagine. What looks like a setback from your limited view might actually be a setup for something far greater. Sometimes, the very thing you think you're losing is what Allah is using to protect you. You cry over closed doors, not realizing that what's behind them would have hurt you, weakened you, or led you away from what was truly meant for you. Every no, Every not yet is Allah's way of saying, I know something you don't. If you could see the unseen reasons behind His timing, your heart would bow in gratitude for every unanswered prayer. Patience in delay is a sign of deep trust. It's saying to Allah, even when I don't understand, I know you are still good. When you stop rushing His plan, you begin to feel peace in the pause. You start to believe that the wait itself is part of your blessing, that it's shaping you for what's ahead. The delay humbles your heart and teaches you to let go of control. It reminds you that your timeline is not divine. His is. And His timing is never late. It is exact, precise, and wrapped in mercy. Sometimes Allah slows you down because He knows the destination is not ready. Or maybe it's you who isn't ready yet. The heart you will have when the blessing finally arrives will not be the same heart that began the wait. You'll see that the delay was building you, not breaking you. It was teaching you patience, humility, and trust in a way no instant answer ever could. In waiting, you learn to value growth more than speed, faith more than certainty. One day, when the plan unfolds and everything begins to make sense, you'll look back and realize that not a single delay was wasted. You'll see how perfectly every piece fit together, how every wait led you to the right time, the right place, the right version of yourself. You'll understand that Allah's timing was not slow. It was merciful. The delay was never about denial. It was always about preparation. And when that moment comes, your heart will whisper, now I see why I had to wait. A faith is easy when everything is clear, when life aligns with your prayers and the path unfolds just as you imagined. But true faith begins when clarity ends. It's when you can't see what's ahead, when nothing seems to make sense, that your heart is invited to trust beyond sight. Trust is not about having all the answers. It's about believing that Allah holds them, even when He keeps them hidden. It's the quiet whisper in your soul that says, why Allah? I don't understand, but I know you never make a mistake. There are times when you search for signs, for a reason, for anything that will make the waiting easier, but all you find is silence. That silence isn't absence. It's a test. It's Allah asking, will you still believe I am with you, even when you can't feel me? In those moments, your heart learns the difference between believing in outcomes and believing in the one who controls them. Trusting when you can't trace His plan is the highest form of surrender. It's choosing peace over panic and faith over fear. Even when the path is dark, every time you choose to trust Allah despite your confusion, something within you grows stronger. Your faith deepens, your soul softens, and your heart learns to rest. The storms that once terrified you begin to teach you. You start to realize that what truly breaks you is not the waiting itself, but the resistance to it. When you let go of control, you find that the same storm that once felt like chaos was always steering you toward something better. Trust transforms your fear into calm, your doubt into clarity. There's a quiet beauty in trusting Allah without proof. It's in those moments that you experience the deepest closeness to Him. Because when you have nothing left but faith, you finally realize that faith was always enough. You begin to see how every unanswered question carries its own kind of mercy, how every delay is wrapped in wisdom. And though your eyes cannot see His hand, your heart begins to feel His presence guiding you in ways words can't describe. One day, you'll look back and understand. You'll see that every closed door, every pause, every unanswered prayer was not random. It was part of a perfect story written for you. You'll understand that trust was never about knowing the plan, but knowing the planner. And in that realization, peace will find you, not because everything finally makes sense, but because you'll know it never had to. Patience is more than just waiting for something to change. It is the way you wait, the posture of your heart in the silence. It's easy to stay patient when everything is unfolding as you hoped. But real patience is forged in the fire of uncertainty. It's when you want to rush ahead, when you crave answers, yet choose stillness instead. This stillness isn't weakness. It's strength born from surrender. It's saying, Ya Allah, even if I can't see what you're doing, I trust that you are doing what's best. Each moment of waiting becomes a quiet lesson in letting go. You start to understand that not everything needs to be rushed or controlled. Sometimes Allah slows you down to protect you from walking into something unready or to prepare you for what's greater ahead. In that slowing, your heart learns to rest in His will, even when it hurts. You discover that patience is not about suppressing your emotions, but about allowing them to exist while holding on to hope. As you practice patience, your soul begins to transform. You start to detach from your own plans and desires, finding comfort in divine timing instead. The more you surrender, the lighter your heart feels. You no longer tie your peace to outcomes, but to trust in Allah's wisdom. And in that trust, you begin to love Allah not because He gives you what you want, but because you know He knows what you need. The journey of patience shapes your soul into something softer, stronger, and more peaceful than before. There will be days when patience feels impossible, when your heart aches from the weight of waiting. But those are the very moments that build you. Every time you choose faith over frustration, you are teaching your heart resilience. You are learning that peace doesn't come from getting what you want. It comes from believing that Allah's plan is better, even when it breaks you. Through patience, you begin to see that pain can coexist with peace, and both can lead you closer to Him. Eventually, you realize that patience was never just about waiting for something to happen. It was about who you became in the process. It refines your heart, humbles your spirit, and fills you with a peace that no outcome can shake. What once felt like delay now feels like mercy. What once felt like loss now feels like guidance. And in that realization, you find yourself no longer waiting in despair, but waiting with hope. Because you finally understand that every moment spent trusting Allah is a moment never wasted. There are times in life when you ache for something so deeply that it becomes the center of your prayers, the focus of your hopes, and the dream that keeps you awake at night. You beg Allah to give it to you, to make it yours, to open that one door, but the door stays closed. The silence stretches longer than you expected, and your heart begins to ache with questions. In those quiet moments of longing, you may not realize that the very thing you're asking for could hurt you if given too soon. Sometimes, Allah withholds not because He wants to deprive you, but because He wants to protect you. What you see as delay is often mercy in disguise. Allah knows your heart in a way you never could. He knows when it's ready to carry a blessing and when it still needs time to grow stronger. If He were to give everything the moment you asked, your soul would not have space to hold it with gratitude. The gift could easily become your focus instead of the giver. So in His wisdom, He withholds, not to make you suffer, but to purify your heart until you can receive without being consumed by the blessing itself. Every not yet from Allah carries deep compassion. It's His way of teaching you that fulfillment doesn't come from what you receive, but from who you rely on. When you learn to love Him more than what you seek, the waiting no longer feels like punishment. It becomes a form of love, a divine pause that prepares you for something better. You begin to see that being withheld from certain things is not a loss. It's a redirection towards something safer, purer, and far more meaningful. When Allah withholds, He invites you to trust His timing and to believe that every delay is part of His perfect plan. It's a call to shift your focus from, when will it happen, to, what is Allah teaching me right now? And in that shift, your heart begins to soften. You start to recognize how much beauty there is in waiting, how much strength is built in the stillness. You realize that every disappointment carries within it a hidden kindness, and every unanswered prayer is a doorway to a deeper connection with Him. One day, when you look back, you'll understand. You'll see that the things you once cried for would have broken you if they had arrived earlier. You'll see that Allah's withholding was never rejection. It was redirection. It was His way of shaping your heart, so that when the blessing finally came, you could hold it with humility instead of attachment, with gratitude instead of pride. And in that realization, you will thank Him not only for what He gave, but for what He wisely kept away until the perfect time. There comes a moment when the waiting ends, and the pieces of your story finally begin to make sense. What once felt like silence now sounds like wisdom. You start to see how every delay was not random, but intentional. How every unanswered prayer was leading you to something you didn't even know you needed. The pause that once felt painful begins to reveal its purpose. It was never meant to break you. It was meant to build you. Through that stillness, Allah was shaping your character, deepening your faith, and aligning your path with a destiny you were not yet ready to receive. Looking back, you begin to understand that the waiting itself was a gift. It taught you patience, trust, and humility. It made you rely on Allah in ways you never would have if everything had gone according to your plan. The pause stripped away illusions of control and reminded you who truly holds time in His hands. You realized that had things happened earlier, you might have missed the lessons that changed your heart. Every unanswered prayer, every slow season was a moment of divine care disguised as delay. It's in those long pauses that your relationship with Allah becomes real. When the world is quiet and your plans are on hold, you have no one left to depend on but Him. And that's where your heart learns what true connection feels like. You discover that His love was never proven through quick answers, but through His presence in your waiting. You start to see how He never left you, not for a moment. The delay wasn't distance, it was depth. It was the time your soul needed to draw closer to the One who never forgets His servant. When your life begins to move again, it won't be with the same heart you had before. You'll walk forward with a deeper calm, a softer spirit, and a stronger trust. You'll understand that peace doesn't come from everything happening quickly. It comes from knowing that everything happens exactly when it's meant to. The same moments that once brought you frustration will now bring you gratitude, because you'll see how perfectly everything fell into place once you surrendered your timeline for His. And one day, you will look back at that season of stillness with tears of thankfulness. You'll whisper to yourself, "Now I understand." The pause was never punishment. It was protection. It was Allah holding you back until the path was safe, until the blessing was right, until you were ready to receive it. What once felt like delay was actually divine timing unfolding in the most beautiful way. And when you finally see how perfectly it all fits together, you'll realize that the wait was never wasted. It was the very thing that prepared you for everything you were meant to become. So when life slows down again, and you find yourself in another season of waiting, don't lose heart. Remember that the pause is not a stop in your story. It's simply a page where Allah is still writing. Every delay holds meaning. Every silence carries mercy, and every unanswered prayer is heard by the One who never forgets you. Be patient, Because the one who controls time is never late. Trust his process even when you cannot see his plan. One day, when everything unfolds, you'll realize it was all happening in perfect order, exactly as it was meant to. And in that moment, your heart will whisper, Alhamdulillah for the wait.